Hey folks, Evan from Stock Music Musician, and today I want to tell you all about how to use a sidechain compressor and just talk about sort of what sidechain compression is and what sidechain compression can do. So in this video, the first thing we're going to do is actually just talk about what is a compressor, period. Then from there, we're going to talk about what a sidechain compressor is, and I'll show you how you can set it up. And then what we're going to do is actually kind of show some real life applications of it. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can use a sidechain compressor to make way better sounding mixes and way better sounding music. I'm also going to invite you right now to take a moment and leave a question that you have about how you should use sidechain compression, or leave a comment about how you like to use sidechain compression. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe. Okay, let's take a quick listen to this track here. It's still a work in progress, but we'll listen to just a couple bars without sidechain compression on. I've got it on 3 tracks, and then with sidechain compression on. This is no sidechain. Okay, so that's no sidechain compression. Now I'm going to turn the 3 different sidechain compressors on. And let's see if you can't hear a lot more clarity, a lot more groove, and also a lot more low end. Okay, so hopefully you heard some of those differences. They're kind of subtle, but they do make a big difference. And we're going to go towards the end and we'll actually break down all of those and how I did it. So the first question is just, what is compression, period? Now, a lot of people think that compression is simply reducing volume and it's a way to control volume. And that is true, but it's not the whole story. What compression really is it's controlling volume at a certain amount of time. So let's open a compressor here. Let's actually make a new one. We'll bypass this compressor on the 808 and we'll create a new one. And so we'll solo the 808. That's not the 808. And so you've got several controls, but let's go to a simpler version where we've got attack and release. Those are the only 2 things that are really mattering here. And let's go to the graph. This is going to show us how the sound is being reduced. We're going to turn it up for a really extreme setting, just so you can sort of hear and see. The ratio is just how much compression applies, and the threshold is when it applies. But what we really are interested in is the attack and release. So here, what you're seeing is the sound being reduced by a lot. And we could use makeup gain here to make up that loss. All right, sorry, that's probably way too loud. But so in that respect, you're just thinking, well, compression is controlling volume. But really what it's doing is it's controlling volume over time. It's basically giving you an ADSR envelope, an ability to shift where in your wave there is the volume. Here's the instrument. Okay, we're going to look at this instrument, right? And this instrument has its envelope, its amp envelope, and its filter envelope. And this is attack, decay, sustain, and release. Attack is how long it takes for the initial attack to show up. Decay is how long that initial attack stays around. Sustain is what happens after the initial attack, and release is how long the sound lasts after you let go of the button. That is the shape and the length of the sound. So if we were instead to solo this synth, if we move the attack really far back, so you hear it takes a long time for the sound to get here, or now it's instant. It sort of fades in, and it doesn't last very long. Here, it doesn't last at all. So, by adjusting this envelope, you totally change where the sound is loud. And so, we can also make it last longer. And so that is kind of what a compressor allows you to do. By what the compressor is doing is it's turning down the volume at specific points. So the attack is how quickly does it turn down the volume, which basically shifts the amp envelope back. Let's just pull up that example again. Right, the attack on a short attack on the compressor means the compressor will shorten the quick part of the sound, and it will basically has the effect of pulling the attack back on an amp envelope. In contrast, the release is how long does it take for the compressor to let go, meaning that the remainder of the sound will either be allowed to be here. If you've got a short release, basically the rest of the sound will be unaffected by the compressor. If you've got a really long release, then you might lose the end of the sound. So let's now listen to some examples on the 808. Right now, this is still just basic compression. We'll get to the sidechain compression in a minute. But right now, we've got a quick attack, and we'll do a quick release. And let's use makeup gain just so it's easy to hear. Basically, what makeup gain does is it makes up for all of the lost volume. But I'm going to turn a limiter on here so it doesn't get too loud. Okay, so let's look at that compressor now and hear what's going on. You hear how it's largely the peaks, not an initial look. Let's solo it. So it's missing a bit of the beginning. But now you hear the first hits. Boom, boom. And if we go even slower. And this is more its tail now that's being tamped down. So you can hear how you can use a compressor to really shape the tone of a sound. Now, the difference between a regular compressor and a sidechain compressor is that when you're using a regular compressor, the original sound is triggering its own compression, right? So there, the sound of that 808 was compressing the 808. But with a sidechain compressor, in contrast, you can have another instrument trigger the sound. So here what I've done is I've used the sidechain input to send the kick drum to the 808. So now whenever the kick drum hits, that is going to trigger the compressor that quiets down the bass. So basically, it's getting the initial attack of the bass, or the entire sound of the bass, out of the way when the drum attacks. And that lets the kick drum sound through clearer, but not in a massively noticeable way, so that you can have both of them still loud and present in the mix without getting in the way. So let's listen to this without. Listen to the kick drum especially. You can't really hear it too well. Now. And if we make it more extreme. Do you hear how it's cutting through already? And if we go with a slower attack down. You notice that hits when the kick hits. not when the bass. Let's make it more extreme. Turn on auto release. So that's one of the best ways to use sidechain compression, is just to have the kick duck, that's what you can call that, duck the bass. It gets it out of the way when the kick is hitting, but then you don't need to worry about them fighting for sonic space as much anymore with EQ or other features. You've got it just going right. And it's something that'll help the mix sit together way better. So now let's listen to just the two of these on and off. Where's the kick? It just really helps it punch through. And that's not, I haven't done any EQ or anything else on it. It's just a little sidechain compression. So that's the basics of what sidechain compression is, right? It uses one source to control the compressor on another source. So now I want to go to two more advanced ways of using sidechain compression. The first is using a kick drum to control a bass. It gives way more control over the low end. The second thing I want to show you is how to use a sidechain compression to make more clarity with a delay or a reverb. So here I've got these bells. This is just the way they sound naturally. Then I wanted to send them to a delay. But you hear how washed out that sounds? Totally undefined. Now let's use a sidechain compressor. With that on, you really are only hearing the echoes and not the initial attack on the delay. So what's going on with this sidechain compressor? Well, what I've done is I've actually sent the original bell sound into the compressor. So when the initial bell, the unprocessed bell, is playing, that's triggering the sidechain compressor to make the echo quiet. And when the original bell isn't playing, the sidechain compressor releases and the sound of the echo can come through. So let's look. We could do a faster release maybe. That sounds even better to me. And I find between 5 and 10 dB of reduction is about the right amount to do with sidechain compression, because any more and it starts to be really unnatural, but you're just kind of going for subtle clearing. You're not really trying to radically change the sounds in either of these two applications. But in the third one, what I'm about to show you, to create cool moving pads, it absolutely is acceptable to go for much more extreme sounds. So here's the pad we have using Massive X, awesome plugin, without the sidechain compressor. Sounds pretty good, but oh, I gotta turn this on. Sorry. Alright, so let's listen to this again. Mushy and static without. But it's got a groove and it pulses with. So let's listen to that in the context of the mix, and then I'll show you how I did it. Sits there. But it gets just a little bit of head nodding. And so the thing about sidechain compression is just like you put it in a bunch of different places, and it just gives you a little bit more rhythm and a little bit more groove locked in throughout your entire track. There's no single thing here that's a silver bullet, but together. And you could put something like this on multiple tracks here on the song. I just decided from where I am right now, that's where I am. But so how did I do this? Well, you'll notice that it's going every quarter note, basically. Let's look at this graph. Very consistently, but I don't have an instrument in my mix that's making that sound. So what I did is I just drew in a pattern here on the ghost kick, just a simple 4 on the floor pattern, but instead of routing this to a audio output, I'm routing it to a bus, and then that bus is the input for the sidechain compressor on this pad. Emphasizes the backbeat more because it's not hitting up front, and this would emphasize the front beat because the compressor doesn't attack quickly. So there you have it. I hope this was a really helpful tutorial about what compression is, what sidechain compression is, and I hope it gave you 3 interesting ways that you can use it. If you've got other ways of using sidechain compression, please let me know down below. I'm always interested in finding out new ways of using it. And if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below as well. Be sure to like and subscribe for more great music-related videos. Thanks. Bye-bye.